Stanley Parable. Ja. 12 Uhr. Oh, du hast die Zeit auf 12 Uhr eingestellt. Nach meiner großen Rede darüber, wie beeindruckt ich bin, dass du nicht einfach 12 Uhr eingestellt hast, hast du es also trotzdem gemacht. Ich weiß nicht, was ich davon halten soll. Oder vielleicht
ist auch gerade
ist
12 Uhr.
Vielleicht ist 12 Uhr ja wirklich deine Lieblingsuhrzeit. Bist du wirklich ganz verrückt nach 12 Uhr? Denn falls das so ist, na, sagen wir einfach, ich habe viel Zeit damit verbracht, auf die Leute wütend zu sein, die die Zeit auf 12 Uhr eingestellt haben. Hab für sie ihren Hang zu 12 Uhr zu Unrecht verachtet? Vielleicht habe ich das. Lass uns diese Frage mit einem Regler klären. Wie ungerecht ist es, Leute zu verabscheuen, deren Lieblingsuhrzeit 12 Uhr ist?
Gerecht.
Schon sehr gerecht. Also also so ein bisschen machen wir so. Weißt du, du solltest wissen, egal, ob es jetzt Mitternacht ist oder nicht. Ich habe einen Mordspaß am Anpassen dieser Einstellung. Ich habe das Gefühl, mehr über dich zu erfahren und darüber, wie du Einstellungen vornimmst. Es ist gut, Daten zu sammeln. Alter, ist einfach Google. Ich wünschte, wir hätten mehr Regler, aber wir sind alle Regler durchgegangen, die ich habe. Vielleicht kann ich ein paar neue Slider erfinden, um neue Daten über dich zu sammeln. Sollte nicht so schwer sein. Lass mich ein paar neue auftreiben. Sollte fertig sein, wenn du das nächste Mal das Spiel startest. Oh Leute, freut ihr euch schon in einem Monat, wenn es dann die Story weitergeht? Mit dem Spielstart. Juhu. Da haben die Leute doch Bock.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Oh, wirklich?
Stanley worked for...
Kennen wir. Okay, Alter, die Maussensitivität. Bruder. Bruder, ich muss... Hier für GBD natürlich das Sichtfeld hoch. Der kriegt ja Johns Motion Sickness. Steuerung. Kann ich das irgendwo umstellen? Empfindlichkeit der Kamera. Boah. Stark.
Decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Was hatten wir beim letzten Mal gemacht? Ich habe schon wieder vergessen.
Ich glaube, wir haben das natürlich, das vorgesehene Ending gemacht.
Ah, okay. Genau.
Lass mich kurz überlegen. Content. Machen wir noch ein Ending oder machen wir den New Content? Ah, komm.
New Content? What does that mean? New Content.
Schauen wir uns den neuen Content an.
Weiter, ne? Horrorbahn.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home
Ist das
computers.
dies herausgekommen?
Ja.
The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special.
Da kann man wieder hoch und runter
Sure,
fahren.
it's just the
Nee, hier sind keine
beginning of a
Knöpfe.
mesmerizing
Oh
adventure.
Mann. Sind wir da eingesperrt?
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
Oh wow, wir fahren hoch.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
Alter.
All right. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
Alter. Ich kann springen. Jo. Das ist ja krass.
Alter.
Soll ich dir ein krasses Easter Egg zeigen?
Ja, bitte.
Okay, wenn wir jetzt neu beginnen, können wir springen. Immer noch. Unendlich. Krass, ne?
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Und es gibt ein
Perhaps he had seen Mr.
erstklassig krasses Easter Egg. Das ist crazy krass.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew
Alter.
perfectly
Aber wir
well.
müssen uns gleich diese
Perhaps he wanted
Dia-Show
to stop
nochmal
by the
angucken.
employee
Ist ganz
lounge
schade.
first, just to admire it.
Ja, ist ganz neu.
Yes, truly a room.
Boah, stell dir mal vor, wir hätten einen Cutter, dann könntet ihr das rausschneiden.
Stanley took the
Oh,
first
lol.
open door on his left.
Cutter, mach mal.
Cutter, mach mal.
Bob.
Ich
Stanley was so
schick das
mad
einfach
following
Bub.
directions that
Der
he
cuttet
could
das dann
have
raus.
5 years ago.
Alter.
Nicht nur ist hier ein Ending, aber hier ist auch ein krasses Secret.
Stanley had now gotten himself so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path.
Krass, ne?
that it seemed
Aber
the
hier
office had
hinten,
begun. So far off the beaten path
hier hinten
that it
ist ein
seemed the
Easter
office
Egg.
had begun. So far off the beaten path
Praise
that
to
it seemed the
jumping.
office had begun. So far off the beaten path.
Na, erkennst du das Game? Woher kommt das wohl?
Das ist nicht Dark Souls.
Nee, ist Elden Ring.
Also,
Praise to
ach so,
jumping.
lol. Ah, lol. Das ist ja mega cool.
You didn't think I was actually just a recording, did you? What a silly and trite explanation that would be. All the back and forth between you and me, all the absurd adventures we've been through, and it all turns out I'm just a tape recording? It was all just in Stanley's head. I bet that's the kind of twist you think is revelatory. I bet each and every time you watch a movie where it turns out all to be in the main character's imagination, you must absolutely bolt off the couch in pure shock at the phenomenal and intricate storytelling. It must be so simple to be you. Life being an unending waterfall of surprises and delights. How much more exciting you must find the world than the rest of us do. Now I've become sad. Look what you've done to me. This is all your fault.
Tja,
Oh, wow.
traurig. Aber wir können immer noch springen. Man kann aber leider nicht mehr damit machen. Außer springen. Alter, wir können springen.
Ich kann sagen, mit dem Springen hätte man vielleicht auch das eine oder andere Easter Egg noch hätte machen können. Oder
Ja, ich glaube, die Sache ist, man soll ja eigentlich gar nicht springen können. Das ist ja ein Bug, sozusagen. Wenn du das Spiel in dem Kreis neu startest, dass du dauerhaft springen kannst. Wenn ich jetzt springe, verbrauche ich auch meine Sprünge wieder. Deswegen springen wir nicht so oft. Oder der Cutter cuttet das hier raus. Na, Cutter. Wenn ihr das hier seht, war der Bub faul. Fucking Bub. Bob.
Jetzt können wir über den Bub lästern.
Ja. Weißt du, was echt lustig wäre? Wenn wir sagen, dass der Bub zu faul war, das hier rauszucutten, aber in Wirklichkeit haben wir dem Bub nie die Möglichkeit gegeben, das Video überhaupt zu cutten.
Ja.
Sondern wir haben es direkt hochgeladen.
Also wir haben entweder die linke oder die rechte Tür genommen. Links, wir geben Bob die Aufnahme, rechts, wir geben sie überhaupt nicht.
Er geht durch beide Türen einfach. Das, Alter, so ein Meme gesehen von Do you take the red or the blue pill? Und dann so, did you seriously take both?
I'm very excited to see the thrilling ultra deluxe content. Okay, so far it's an elevator.
Alter, diese Bodentextur erinnert mich an Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Pass. Findest du nicht auch? Sieht fast genauso aus, ne?
Sie erinnert mich auch ein bisschen an Garys Mod.
Hier, das auch.
Is it broken?
Das Original war ja sogar in der Source Engine gemacht.
Should we be moving somewhere or
Und das Remaster, Remake, was auch immer, ist halt jetzt Unity, glaube ich. Ha. Krasse Fun Facts, ne?
Ja.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if the... Oh, okay. Let's
Lass
see
mich.
the content. Give me the
Kein Bock
content,
mehr.
Stanley. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
Guck mal, ich bin auf dem Tisch. Und jetzt kann ich nicht mehr springen. Ja, aber jetzt kann ich springen. Jetzt nicht mehr. Hui! Ja, ich kann nicht mehr springen. Ich vergaß. Vor allem, ich finde es gut, wie ich direkt aus Muscle Memory direkt einen Ducksprung machen möchte.
Aber wie in TDT oder so.
Ja, oder CSGO, ne? Direkt einfach Muscle Memory kickt.
Was jetzt passiert, wenn du einfach auf Null gegangen bist?
Ja, das ist eine Frage, die wir uns für irgendwann mal aufheben.
I could counter 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh wait, there's more.
Also ich fände es auch gut, wenn man so einen Erzähler hätte, der einfach das komplette Alphabet durchliest.
I'm ready for whatever it is. That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar.
Erinnert mich an Nintendo.
The level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Tja, das war's schon. Gibt kein extra Content. Oh.
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something. Oh, you don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway, so who cares? Oh, never mind. You're not a dork.
Sagt er noch was? Nee.
Wäre cool gewesen.
Wäre schon stark gewesen.
War da nicht eben eine Tasse oder sowas? Oh.
Ja. Ich glaube, da war einfach nur eine nutzlose Tasse. Guck mal, da sind wir runtergefallen.
Oh nein.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Warte mal. Kann man irgendwie ranzoomen?
Nee, ich glaub nicht.
Komm, muss doch einen Zoom-Knopf geben. Langweilig. Warte. The Academy of Film and Television Arts. Ach so, das ist der Preis, den Dings gekriegt hat. Wie hieß es nochmal? Das kam im selben Jahr raus für die PS3. Dieses krasse Spiel mit den Zombies.
Keine Ahnung.
Was alle so lieben, wo es ja jetzt auch den zweiten Teil gab und alles.
The Last of Us?
Ja, das hier ist der Preis von The Last of Us, aber mit einem Stanley Parable Sticker drüber. Good times. Ach, erinnerst du dich noch vor einem Monat, als wir Stanley Parable durchgespielt haben? Alter. Das ist das alte Firefox.
Wie Valentine.
A trip down memory line. Alter, ist das der Stanley Parable Ost?
Ein Alexi.
Stabil. Smile because it happened. Das ist
$1.
Das ist Mr. Krabs erster Dollar. Oh, das gute alte Menü. Go outside, don't play for 5 years. An achievement. It's impossible to get this achievement. Das hier sind wieder die Preise von Last of Us. New video game releasing today. The New York Times. Creator surprisingly down to earth. Okay. 50% off designer head, but a small creature owns the other half. Late Edition. Today sunny hot. Alter, das ist einfach die Wettervorhersage für heute. Oder generell momentan. Alter, erinnerst du dich noch, als wir gestorben sind? Und da stand so eine Frau, die zur Arbeit musste.
Gute Zeiten.
Gute alte Zeiten. In loving memory. Little Stanley. Alter, ein Hamster. Oder so. War das ein Hamster? Ist ein Hamster,
Genau.
oder? Sieht aus wie einer. Kannst du nicht sagen. Alter, eine Bank. Ich will mich auf die Bank setzen. Da steht ein fucking Klavier. Ich muss mal kurz was nachgucken. Okay.
Die Musik.
Ja, die geht richtig ab, ne?
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
New Elevator Content. Aber der Jump Circle war schon stabil. Alter, das Portal. Wusstest du, krasser Fun Fact, dass du in Stanley Parable 1, glaube ich auch, dass du dieses Schlauchboot spawnen kannst.
Oh lol.
Das ist eine Lüge, ich weiß es nicht. Aber es wäre lustig, wenn es geht. Ich weiß es nicht. Muss man mal nachgucken.
Ich fand es gut, dass eben ja ein Bild von Minecraft war.
Wo, was?
Da hinten, da an der Tür. Nicht da auf der Seite, andere Seite. Nee, du musst schon in den anderen Raum wieder gehen.
Bin so blöd
Da
dafür.
hinten, ja, bei der anderen Tür. Gegenüber. Da links, da rechts.
Oh, stimmt, weil das eine Ending war, mit Minecraft war. Alter, erinnerst du dich noch, als der Narrator ein Erdhaus gebaut hat? Oh,
Nein!
solch ein schönes Erdhaus. Tja, hast das Original nie gespielt, du. Jo, selber schuld. Erinnerst du dich noch an die blaue und rote Tür?
Nein!
Was? Ja, okay, gut, ist 2 Monate, glaube ich, her. Aber erinnerst du dich denn noch an literally anything?
The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone. To spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Source. Alter. Das ist die Source Engine. Vicky, schau dir das an. Das ist sie. Die Source Engine. People play games because of what they can do inside them. And your game is very good at letting them know they can't do anything. Was hältst du davon? Ein Spiel, das dir einfach sagt, dass du gar nichts machen kannst. A Serious Room. Alter.
Da können wir aber nicht rein.
Nee. Stell dir mal vor, wir könnten noch springen.
Ja.
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no. Oh God, no.
Oh
Stanley,
nein.
it's a collection of reviews from Steam.
Steam
the online
reviews.
Video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Genau, wahrscheinlich das Gegenteil.
Yo.
I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable.
Gott, hier sind so viele Steam-Reviews.
Such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Ich bin für Stanley in Smash. Und den
Ich
Narrator.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. I always, well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with.
Das
Sind das echte
Nudelschaf.
Reviews gewesen?
Keine Ahnung.
Wäre witzig.
Ich denke nicht.
But maybe it wasn't. Dear, what an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record.
Ein Bulldog. Erinnerst du dich noch an das Ending, wo überall Gabelstapler waren?
Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remember.
Das war lustig.
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my
Alter.
today, and it's
Einfach
always
Atlantis.
harder. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you with... Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd say it was perhaps less of a rumination and more of a treatise. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their Steam review, or at least change some of the wording, perhaps. To be honest, I don't even know if one can change the review. Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes. Unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But at any rate, I do suggest that we not press the button again. Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer. And my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. It's completely gone. I've looked.
Leute, ich glaube, wir haben Assault verloren. Oh, mein Internet ist gecrashed. Das ist ja cool. Ha. Ja doch, das ist sehr cool. Ziemlich cool, ja. Ich brauche eine Lösung, wie ich das jetzt löse. Ohne Videoschneiden. Ah, es gibt einen Pauseknopf. Ja, bis gleich. Oh, ich habe Assault wieder zurückgeholt und ich habe ein bisschen zurückgespult.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant drone. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long rambling monologue for. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But at any rate, I do suggest that we not press the button again. Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer. And my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. It's completely gone. I've looked at it from every angle. I've checked every one of those walls 1,000 times. And there's no door, Stanley. There's no door. There's just you and the button. And if you keep pressing it, I have no idea what will happen. I have no idea how long I'll... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week.
A week?
I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here, not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing. Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been doing? Me just talking? But it isn't, Stanley. It isn't the same at all. Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for
Nach einem Jahr.
Right for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time, Stanley. Days, months. I lost it all in a blur of the deepest longing to undo the past. And when that feeling had begun to subside, what took its place is what I can only describe as the collapse of every moment I have ever experienced my entire life. All of them collapsed down into a single instant. In that instant, I could see myself clearly, calmly, with a collected heart. It was an impossibly
Jetzt ist er komplett weg. Der
Oh
Raum
hey,
wird
die
auch immer
Kamera
kleiner,
geht
ne?
noch.
Der Raum wird immer irgendwie kleiner, oder?
Nee,
Nicht da?
ich glaube nicht. Oh Gott. Fucking Uhr.
Nee, es ist nicht die Uhr.
Das ist der Feueralarm. Schnell weg.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But
Alter,
then,
wie
he's
salty
talking too
er
much,
ist.
they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability. It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack of cohesion in one's assessment of others. But of course...
Oh mein Gott.
The end is never the end, is never
Oh
the end,
Gott.
is never the end, 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 is never the
Ich glaube, jetzt ist er einfach geisteskrank geworden.
end, is never the end, is never the end.
Alter, ist mein Internet schon wieder weg, oder was?
Nein.
Alter, ich hab schon gedacht.
Oh mein Gott. Ja.
Ich glaube, wir
Ja,
haben den
aber-
Narrator einfach umgebracht an Altersschwäche. Oder geisteskrank, weil er... Oh mein Gott! Ich glaube, wir werden bald sterben. Ich frage mich, wie viel Zeit der Knopf mittlerweile überspringt. Jahrhunderte? Jahrtausende? Alter. Ist das... Alter, ich glaube, wir reisen gerade zu Portal 2. Oh mein Gott, das ist wirklich Portal 2 einfach. Krieg ich gleich meine Portal Gun? Ja, ja. Stark.
Der Narrator ist schon seit Jahrzehnten tot einfach.
Und da sind die Pflanzen wieder tot. Oh Gott. Alter.
Alter. Oh.
Ja. Oh mein Gott. Freiheit. Oh. Nee. Kann ich den Knopf nochmal drücken?
Hallo, Knopf.
Ich glaube nicht. Oh Gott, dann gehen
Ja.
wir mal. Unser neues Leben. Am Ende der Zeit.
Die ganzen Steam-Reviews einfach weg.
Ja, die sind gestorben. Die haben sich einfach aufgelöst und sind zu Gas geworden, verstehst du? Zu Rauch.
Ah, so.
Ja,
An einem Computer.
genau,
Okay.
genau. Ja. Nee, der Witz war, weil Steam heißt der eigentlich, ja.
Ja, ist schon.
All of his
Verständlich.
coworkers were gone.
Okay.
What could it mean?
Stanley ist
Er hat
also...
den Narrator
To go to the
einfach
meeting.
umgebracht.
Perhaps he had simply missed a
Stanley hat einfach das Ende der Welt gesehen, das Ende des ganzen Universums vermutet. New Könnt.
Konnte.
Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very
Wie soll
exciting to
man
show
das
you.
nicht sehen? Hä? Hab ich gar nicht
Kannst du's
gesehen.
ausstecken?
Hoppla.
Kannst du es ausstecken? Schade.
Nee.
Wäre cool gewesen, wenn das gehen würde.
Ah, noch mehr neuer Content. Aber ich weiß nicht, ob ich noch mehr neuen Content aushalte. Ist schon... schon krass.
Haben wir jetzt nochmal die Strecke?
Ich hab keine Ahnung.
Ah, nee.
Nö.
Nein, Gott sei Dank nicht.
Oh Hey, wir sind wieder Mario Kart 8
You see,
und
Stanley, I've
Husapass
been reflecting on the
Aufzug.
Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the
And jetzt-
Stanley Parable 2.
Alter! Die Stanley Parable 2.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It
Alter,
could
sei,
go
wenn
in
du's sehen.
so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
Alter, sie sind zurück.
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement.
The
right
color
there.
red.
It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
Warte mal. Alter. Alter, das sind Logos von anderen Spielen. Hier unten ist Resident Evil. Weiß ich, das Logo erkenne ich nicht.
Das da unter ist New Style Boutique, das 4.
Fucking New Style Boutique.
Das 2. ist
Ja, das hier ist,
Evil.
das ist auf jeden Fall Resident Evil da unten. Das ist da oben.
Aber 2 ist, nee, 2 ist entweder The Last of Us oder
Ach ja,
Resident
The
Evil.
Last of Us. Klar, das würde Sinn machen.
Das 3. frage ich aber.
Ich verstehe, ich
das
weiß
kommt
auch
mir
nicht. Also
Kommt mir bekannt vor.
ja, kommt mir auch bekannt vor. Alter, da ist die nochmal, die Präsentation. Alter, 2 Stanleys, ein Koop. Stabil.
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features.
Yes,
I've been
never the
developing
end.
for it.
Again.
I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will
2
sort of
Nos
spring up
Triads.
around
Oh
them.
no.
It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
Oh Leute,
Dark Souls 2.
Leute. Das ist eine
Sequels are
Lüge.
Gut. Jetzt haben die da alle aufgezählt, die eigentlich nicht so gut sind.
Alter, was? Dark Souls 2 ist scheiße, ja. Aber ich
Portal 2
glaube,
ist gut.
das ist confirmed, dass es kein Stanley Parable 3 geben wird. Weil Portal kann ich bis 3 zählen, Half-Life kann ich bis 3 zählen, Batman kann ich bis 3 zählen. Okay, Doom kann
Dark
bis
Souls
3
aber.
zählen. Dark Souls auch.
Dark Souls auch.
Aber Dark Souls 2 ist scheiße. Alter, the prequel to the Stanley Parable. 2 is the sequel to it. Wow. This way to the show floor. New features. Alter, nicht nur neuer Content.
Nein.
Das New Content.
Oh Mann, aber ich kann gar nicht in den Bus rein. Du kannst ja keine Pommes essen.
Kann man leider nicht. Oh mein Gott.
Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Alter. The button that says the name of the player that is playing the game. Hear your name in the game.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Jim.
Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, Forget whoever you are and simply become a person named Jim.
Ich
I want you
bin
to
Jim.
imagine yourself living as
Ich
sleeping
bin
and waking
Jim.
as Jim. Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish
Aber was
first.
ist, wenn du Jim heißt?
Now, allow yourself to become Jim. Imagine yourself driving to work as Jim, playing frisbee on the weekends as Jim, staying up all night for a popcorn and horror movie sleepover as Jim, developing a crippling substance addiction as Jim, rediscovering yourself through fringe religious groups as Jim, and finally dying a slow death at an old age, surrounded by members of your cult as Jim.
Jim ist ein richtiger Loser.
Are you really, truly
Er
Jim
wird einfach
right now?
drogenabhängig und geht in eine
So,
Sekte.
then please step forward and press the button.
Okay. Ich bin nicht Jim. Jim ist ein Kaktus.
Yes, you see, what a thrill, what a rush. That was you. The button described you. Do it again. Do it again.
Jim.
Ooh, it hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Nochmal.
Jim.
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much Jim.
Jim.
I'm putting the Jim button away.
Jim.
Otherwise,
Nein,
soon
nein.
you'll start to lose all sense of who
Nicht
you
mein
actually
Jim-Button.
are.
Jim.
Nein, der Jim-Button.
Ich fühle mich, als sei ich nicht mehr Jim. Gerade noch dachte ich sei mein ganzes Leben lang Jim
Kannst du die
gewesen.
anderen Knöpfe da noch drücken, die da an der Wand hängen?
Das ganze Leben lang dachte ich sei Jim. Doch jetzt
Schade.
weiß ich es. Ich war noch nie Jim. Ich bin es nie gewesen. Hier ist eine Tür. Komm ich jetzt zum Jim-Button?
Jetzt da drin.
Das wäre lustig.
I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
Oder was da unten?
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, yes, it would go at the end of the,
Please no
well, we'll figure that
screenshots.
out later.
Was, wo?
Ja, da steht es.
Alter. Ha! Kann mich mal. Hast du das auch gesehen, den Steam Screenshotten?
Ja.
Oh mein Gott. Bankruptcy.
Die
Was ist schlimmer als Feuer? Bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy.
The new update ray traced more of the same, but in a good way. New features, no content, new ideas. Der Knopf, der den Namen des Spielers nennt, der das Spiel spielt. Alter, da ist der Sprungkreis. Wo? Oh mein Gott, der Jump Circle.
You know what, Stanley? I actually think the jump circle was a pretty good idea. I'd like to hang on to that for the sequel.
Komm schon. Ich hab genau gesagt. Ich wusste es genau, dass du das machst. Ich wollte es schon sagen sogar.
Collect them all. Oh mein Gott.
Collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
Aber ich weiß nicht, ob ich würdig bin. Bin ich würdig? Schau dir all diese gefallenen Männer an. Oh. All diese gefallenen
Stanley.
Soldaten, Erkunder, Erforscher.
Kinder.
Oh. Geil. Oh, ich kann nicht zurück.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
Oh, fuck.
All of his co-workers were
Warum ist fake?
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Eigentlich hätte uns das einfach in der Stanley Parable 2 Welt lassen sollen. Das ist jetzt schlecht. Egal, es geht schnell. Ich kann springen. Bist du noch da, Saul?
Ja.
Okay, bist du ruhig.
Bin etwas sauer.
Hey, wie
Wollte,
können...
dass du da noch einmal springst.
Okay, jetzt könnte ich meinen Sprung wieder loswerden. Dauert ja nicht so lange, bis wir wieder da sind.
And about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be.
Alter, Alter, wir können den Gym-Knopf nochmal benutzen. Hat sich gelohnt. Das hat sich ja absolut gelohnt. Geil.
One step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, noch nie gesehen.
Is far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions. Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
Ja,
Now, to be
unbedingt.
clear, I haven't quite
New
nailed down what
content.
exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be.
Man
But
kann in
let's
den Bus
take a
immer noch
look
keine
at some of
Pommes
the
essen.
features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features. You know what, Stanley? I actually think the jump
Der
circle was a
letzte
pretty
Sprung.
good idea. I'd like to hang on
Ein
to that
Sprung, um sie alle zu knechten. Ein Sprung, um über sie alle zu herrschen. Nee, wie ging das nochmal? Ein Sprung. Oh. Wir können nicht mehr springen. Das war enttäuschend.
Wow.
Lass uns nochmal zum Gym-Knopf gehen. Findest du nicht auch?
Ja.
Ich meine natürlich, the button that says the name of the player that is playing the game.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it.
Ja, komm.
Here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim.
Jim.
Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. All right,
Jim.
fine, whatever. It's just a meaningless button that says Jim. Are you happy now? Get out of here.
Ja.
Why don't you go humiliate me in front of a different feature that I worked very hard on?
Mach
See,
den
if you
Gym-Knopf.
only played along, that would have been your name the button says. But no. Instead, I can't even think about it. I'm taking the Jim button away.
Nein! Ah, okay, ist egal. War eh nicht so cool, der Knopf. Hat nicht mal meinen
Was,
eigenen
warum?
Namen gesagt.
Was für einen Gym-Button?
Oh, wir brauchen einen Gym-Button.
Maybe I'll only let people named Jim play the Stanley Parable 2. An epilogue would be
Very good
fun,
film.
wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it will go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
Okay.
Das ist ein großes schwarzes Loch. Oh mein Gott.
Oh, müssen wir eigentlich die Collectible nochmal neu einsammeln? Das war echt nicht schlau, das Spiel neu zu starten.
War nicht schlau.
War nicht so schlau. Ah. You've been here already. Ah. Stark.
Okay, also war trotzdem gespeichert.
Free, new, plus easy, achievement. It just works. I can't believe it's that simple. Stanley Parable do. Get yours right now. Pull the lever. Receive your new achievement. No more steps. It just works. Get yours just right now.
Now, here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes. Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley. But I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Fake.
Fake.
Immer diese Entwickler, die nicht genug Zeit in ihr Spiel reinstecken, um es zu entwickeln.
What else?
Nicht mal
What other
Achievements
exhibits
geben,
have
ey.
we seen yet?
Jump circle. Please, no screenshots.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you think?
Recht.
You know,
Richtig.
sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Happy birthday, Stepniece, it is.
Er wusste es einfach.
Alles Gute zum 12. Geburtstag. Stiefnichte. Das ist auch so gut. Alles Gute, Stiefnichte.
No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Oh. Ein QR-Code. Lass mich den mal kurz scannen. So. Komm. Yeah. Aha. Oh, das muss ich. Okay, lass mich das kurz umstellen. Fenster wechseln. Und jetzt muss ich hier hinzufügen einen Browser. Ich beeile mich, okay.
Ja, ist gut. Text Support kann er einfach das in dem Sinne überspringen.
Genau. Okay. Warum kann ich nicht scrollen? Einen Moment noch. Okay. Die Stanley Parable 2. Lass mich das kurz für mich selber auch ein bisschen größer machen. Hätte man auch Ton? Ich hoffe, man hat Ton.
Ich habe keine Ahnung.
Eigenschaften. Audio über S. Oh, ich hoffe, das ist auch gleich nicht zu laut. Okay. Welcome to the official website of the Stanley Parable 2. A sequel, huh? Watch our helpful and informative video to learn more about the Stanley Parable and what the journey of becoming a sequel is all about.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Ich kann nicht voll mitmachen.
See there,
Und ich höre
Timmy.
nichts.
What's that you're enjoying?
Das ist schlecht.
Why?
Oh, es scheint arschlaut zu sein. Hoppala. So. Wir müssen nur kurz gucken, dass der Ton halbwegs passt. Warte. So. Stanley Parable. Ich höre nichts.
Say there, Timmy. What's
Das
that
ist doch
you're enjoying?
furchtbar.
Und der Tech-Support ist schon dran, ey. Oh mein Gott.
Why? It's breakfast, of course.
Wieso höre ich nichts? Ei. Natürlich, also Cutter schneidet das raus, ist ja ganz klar.
Ja.
Dafür haben wir den hier. Als andere würde ja gar keinen Sinn machen. Ne? Ich höre immer noch nichts. Dann muss ich kurz meinen Browser aufmachen. So. Einen Moment noch.
Ja.
Ja. Ja, das ist jetzt hässlich. Mir egal. Und jetzt noch den Audio. Und deshalb braucht das Bild jetzt auch noch. Ach Leute. Hallo. So. Warum kann man... Ach.
Say there, Timmy. What's that you're enjoying? Why? It's breakfast, of course. Everyone loves breakfast. But did you know that breakfast is getting a sequel? That's right. It's called Lunch. And critics are raving that lunch will be everything breakfast was and more. With a little luck...
Und geht jetzt die Scheiße da nicht weg. So.
We may even get a trilogy series out of it. Say, you know what a sequel is, don't you, Timmy? Why, sequels are the world's way of clinging helplessly to the past. We all want more of the things we love, and we're all afraid of change, which is what makes sequels so popular. New ideas are dangerous, Timmy, and they can lead to early aging. This eager-minded young thinker is just 29 years old. That's why we have sequels, to keep us couched in the familiar and the comfortable. Sequels are the bedrock of a healthy, functional society. And if you look around you, you'll find them everywhere you go. For instance, this man is developing a sequel to the automobile, which we'll call the vertical automobile. It's a useless, impractical invention. And in 2 days' time, the man will be publicly stoned to death for his crimes against gravity. Not all sequels are heretical nonsense, however. Here's the man who invented breathing, which is the sequel to suffocating and dying a slow death. Even your parents are getting a sequel, Timmy. Their names are Rob and Jessica, and they'll be taking care of you once your original parents are sent back in time to fight a secret war for the government. Sequels can be very fashionable. This young woman is wearing 5 shirts at once, which is the sequel to wearing 4 shirts at once. Look at Becky over there, wearing only 2 shirts at once. Get with the times, Becky. In fact, there is only one single thing in the world that isn't a sequel. It's this. We don't know what it is or why it exists, but it's the prequel from which all sequels are derived. And just like everything else, the Stanley Parable is getting a sequel too. We all know, of course, that it was your favorite game as a child. Don't you remember those long, lazy afternoons you spent playing the Stanley Parable? Watching your precious youth fritter away hour after hour. We've all wasted our childhoods in one way or another, and you were fortunate enough to get to waste yours on the Stanley Parable. But the Stanley Parable came out years ago, and you're not a child anymore. You're a man, which is like the sequel to a child. And as a man, you want manly things like taxes and cheating at baseball. You need a man's video game, Timmy. And that's why the Stanley Parable 2 will be perfect for you. It's as manly as video games can get. And if you don't believe me, let's look at the burly hunk of a man who's responsible for the game. Here he is, hard at work. His name is Gregory 8-Pack, and he's the cutting picture of raw, virile masculinity. Gregory is what we call the ideas guy, and he has the most important role on the team. The ideas guy tirelessly comes up with interesting concepts and then hands them off to the rest of the developers for the relatively simple job of turning those concepts into reality. For example, he's the one who picked up the phone and declared, "Someone ought to make a sequel to the Stanley Parable." Good work, Gregory. Go ahead and take the rest of the day off. With the hard part out of the way, work on the game can now begin. The game's developers must answer a simple question. What makes a sequel in the first place? Well, it's simple. Sequels are an opportunity to correct the mistakes of their predecessors. We've all made mistakes, and we've all caused harm to someone we love in order to cover up our mistakes. When developing this particular sequel, it's important to start by thinking, what mistakes did the original Stanley Parable make? Well, first off, most of the pornography in the original game was stolen or pirated, and it's time we paid the licensing fees fair and square. Second, the Stanley Parable was catastrophic for this man named Leroy, whose personal information, including home address, social security number, and bank information, were all displayed prominently in multiple locations throughout the game. Although Leroy's money and identity were stolen, the fact remains that his personal information was the emotional core of the game and absolutely vital to a nuanced understanding of the story. As reparation for the harm we caused him, the sequel will contain a brief and insincere apology to Leroy, tucked deep within the game where it will be difficult to find. Finally, the Stanley Parable made the mistake of leaking too many government secrets about the nature of the Time Wars. Without these intricate details of specific military tactics, the story is likely to make very little sense. But we've decided to remove them from the sequel in the interest of helping the state's efforts. We'll get to you yet, Time Dracula. Now then, it's time to set about constructing the Stanley Parable 2. Game development is a difficult and complex art, one which can only be fully understood by this race of hyper-intelligent child soldiers bred in laboratories. They begin by studying the original Stanley Parable. Here it is in its raw, untouched form, a specimen of technological perfection. Time to exploit it for profit. We begin by adding jokes. The Stanley Parable was most widely known for its stark lack of humor, bucking all conventional industry wisdom. It was a bold artist statement that its developers stood firmly behind. But in 2022, it's impossible to reach even a single consumer of video games without jokes of some kind. So very well, jokes it'll be. During its development, over 500 kiloliters of comedy will be funneled directly into the core of the Stanley Parable 2, creating jobs for hundreds of machine operators and producing 30,000 tons of pollutant chemical byproduct, which will be pumped directly into local lakes, rivers, and beautiful nature reserves like these all over the country. Another common complaint of the Stanley Parable is that there wasn't enough gameplay, and so for the sequel, its developers have gone to great lengths to fix this problem. Here we can see gameplay being printed onto sheets. Every video game contains as many as 1,000 sheets of gameplay, and several of the largest games ever made contain close to 1,500. On mobile devices, the gameplay sheets have to be printed smaller. For the Stanley Parable 2, as many as 35 new gameplay sheets are being printed, each of which must be delicately massaged by the hands of a child before being added into the game. This man is stealing gameplay sheets from the factory, which he likely intends to use for a personal project he's been developing in his spare time. A good public stoning will cure him of that inclination. Let's check on Gregory real quick. Ha! Still recovering from a hard day's work. Don't you move a muscle. Next up, it's time to blackmail the press. In a competitive market, blackmailing your local journalist can be one of the most effective methods of creating word-of-mouth buzz for your sequel. In fact, blackmail is the currency of social progress. From your neighborhood grocer to the teacher at your school to the man who helps you steal HBO, everyone responds to blackmail. And if you've never done it before, it's easy to practice at home on your friends and family. Simply follow the instructional pamphlet that your teacher hands out after the end of the film. And finally, there's one last tool at our disposal for making the sequel feel fresh and exciting, and that's packaging the game with collector's edition merchandise. If you order the Stanley Parable 2, you'll receive this cow's egg. A single egg will produce over 1,000 cows, which are, of course, the sequel to pigs. And there you have it. Everything there is to know about producing the Stanley Parable 2. Of course, you may know that there is also a game titled The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. So which game is the true sequel to the Stanley Parable? It's an excellent question, Billy. One which the child soldiers have been working round the clock to come up with an answer to. And after many weeks of diligent research, the conclusion they've reached is, who gives a shit? All that matters is that it's more content for you to cram down your insatiable gullet. You don't want thoughtful and nuanced answers to complex questions, Billy. You just want to eat bubble gum and cheat at hopscotch. So get out there and consume. Do your civic duty and bully your parents into buying you every version of the Stanley Parable 2 on every platform. Tell your friends to bully their parents as well. It's through community efforts like these that the world comes together, in harmony and connection. And it's only through this connection that we'll defeat Time Dracula once and for all. Don't let the time-traveling vampires win. Buy the Stanley Parable 2 and pledge to support all sequels for today, tomorrow, and into the great unknowable beyond.
Voll.
Alter, das ist das Ende. Das Ende. Alter, ich glaube, ich habe aus Versehen mich sehr viel leiser gerade gestellt in OBS. Gib mir einen Moment. Oh, okay, jetzt sollte es wieder passen, glaube ich. Egal, nicht mein Problem. Alter, wollen wir ein Duck-Duck-Video gucken? Oder hier das Duck-Duck-Duck-Video, wo er mit seinem Bruder Stanley Parable gespielt hat.
Ja, nur dass man halt nur gerade schwarz sah. Okay.
Oh.
Ja, jetzt sieht man es.
Okay. Cool.
Ich meine, die anderen Duck-Ducks-Video kenne ich schon, außer das eine, was die Zeit da mit seinem Bruder, weil ich soll es ja nicht gucken.
Ja, komm rein da.
Davy.
Nee.
Wir machen nichts Let's Play, wie wir das gucken. Wäre
Genau.
doch super. Ja, Leute, das war was zum Fick ist Time Dracula. Okay, sprechen wir nicht über den Zeitkrieg. Der wurde extra entfernt aus Stanley Parable 2.
Oh Mann.
Gucken wir uns das doch mal an.
Schade.
Wohl, wisst ihr was? Der Part geht schon 1 Stunde. Ich glaube, wir enden die Aufnahme hier.
Ja.
Okay. Tschö.